Hello, I'm Dr. Girish Raisinghani, Associate Professor, Department of Botany, SPC Government College, Ajmer. Today we are going to discuss about viruses. This topic of viruses, it is included in the syllabus of BSc Part 1st Botany of MDS University, Ajmer. If we talk about the historical background and the discovery, we can say there were certain plant diseases, although not attributed to viruses at that time, were observed quite early. Breaking of tulip was recorded as early as 1576, while potato curl disease and peach yellows were recorded in 1765 and 1791 respectively. Around 1868, variegation of abetalon gained importance in Europe. It was sometime in 1870 that tobacco crop was affected by a severe disease in Holland. Adolf Mayer, director of Agriculture Experiment Station, began his studies on this disease in 1880 and published his results in 1886. Mayer named the disease as mosaic krankheit, which means mosaic. He was able to demonstrate the infectious nature of the sap of diseased leaves, which could pass through the double filters. It is therefore considered that the science of viruses or virology was born in 1886. However, a Russian scientist named Ivanovsky in 1892 demonstrated that tobacco mosaic could be transmitted to healthy plants through the sap from diseased plants, even though the sap had passed through double filters, fine enough to remove all bacteria. In addition, the sap, when inoculated on culture medium, could not produce any living thing capable of producing the tobacco mosaic disease. Measuring 1898 from Holland also found that the infectious juice remained ineffective even after passing through the bacterial filters and remained sterile. He recognized the existence of a new type of infectious agent and he called it as Contagium vivium fluidum. Infectious, that means infectious living fluid. Subsequently, he referred this infective agent of tobacco mosaic disease as virus. By 1892, viral diseases of vertebrates were well known since the noted scientist Louis Pasteur had been studying canine rabies for quite long time. The first viral disease of human beings, the yellow fever, was discovered by Walter Reed and his associates in 1900. At that time, the term virus included toxins, bacteria, and viruses. Now, if we study its general characters, viruses are non-cellular, ultramicroscopic particles of protein and nucleic acid which grow and multiply only in living cells. They cause many highly infectious diseases of animals, including man, angiosperms, bacteria, fungi, and algae, including the blue greens. All known viruses are pathogens. No saprophytic virus has been discovered so far. The viruses can exist outside the host free in air or water for long periods but remain quite inert in the free state. They become activated only when they enter a living cell of a host organism. They can neither multiply nor metabolize even in complex mixtures of nutrients, including the extracts of cells which they normally parasitize. It is possible to cultivate them only on intact living cells. The viruses thus are obligate parasites and are the smallest of all infective agents, much smaller than the smallest bacteria. Some are of dimensions of large protein molecules. They are not visible with the light microscope. Even the largest ones are seen only as tiny dots at the higher possible magnification. The viruses can, however, be observed and photographed with the electron microscope. In electron micrographs, some appear rod-shaped, others have spherical, cubical, or tadpole forms. Most of them have been crystallized. The virus crystals resemble simple chemical compounds and can be treated like them. Within the host cells, the viruses possess some of the properties of life but not all. They grow, reproduce, and undergo mutation, But no virus has any respiration of its own. They depend on the enzymes of the host cells to do their work. The viruses cannot be placed in either the plant or animal kingdom. The branch of science which deals with them is called as virology. One who specializes in this branch of science is called a virologist. Then, what is the nature of virus? It has long been vexed question. In fact, it is still a mystery as to what is the nature of viruses. The biologists hold that the viruses are animate objects. Biochemists oppose the living hypothesis. They say that the viruses are inanimate objects. For this, two theories have been given to explain the nature of viruses. One is the organism theory and other is the molecular theory. First is organism theory. The supporters of the living hypothesis argue that growth and reproduction are chief distinctive characteristics of living things, that means organisms. Viruses possess both. They reproduce and undergo mutations and become adaptive to the environment through natural selection. They possess genetic continuity and occur in definite races or strains, each with its specific character. In all these respects, they show a similarity to a typical organism. A Russian virologist, Ivan Novisky, in 1890, obtained a juice from the leaves of tobacco plant suffering from tobacco mosaic virus disease. The juice was filtered through the extremely fine porcelain filter that held back even the smallest bacteria. It was then inoculated in an infinitesimal dose, that is in dilutions up to 1 to 1000, in a mash healthy leaves of tobacco. The latter showed signs of virus tobacco mosaic. Moreover, the virus spread throughout the inoculated plant. It increased enormously in amount. Being obligate parasites, the viruses reproduce and grow only within the living tissues of the host. They do not multiply in the dead tissues of the host. Thus, attempts to grow them on artificial media failed. These smallest living organisms contain all the information for their reproduction. Next is the molecular theory. The proponents of the living hypothesis argue that viruses have no cellular organization. They do not have anything resembling cytoplasm, nucleus, or cell membrane. They show no physiological activity except self duplication. They neither take food nor respire. In fact, they show no signs of metabolism. All these are characteristics of inanimate objects. The supporters of this hypothesis were further encouraged in their brief by extraction of viruses in the form of crystals from the diseased host tissues. Stanley in 1935 isolated tobacco mosaic virus in the form of rod-shaped crystals. Since then, many other viruses have been isolated. The virus crystals have a definite shape and size which varies with each virus. The virus crystals or particles, which are termed virions, are apparently lifeless. They can exist in the free state indefinitely, like simple chemical compounds, and are inert in the free state. In their chemical and physical homogeneity, they are similar to the protein molecules. They seem and behave like non-living chemicals. They are not infective by themselves. Upon contact with a suitable host, they are, however, capable of infection. In view of these characteristics, the supporters of non-living hypothesis consider viruses as a non-living toxic substances that have acquired the ability to leave the host cell and infect other cells. The consensus of opinion at present supports the view that the viruses are neither organisms nor cells. They are considerably less than both. They represent the simplest form of life known at the present are subcellular in organization. In the living world, they stand at the threshold of life. Now we take the origin of viruses, how the viruses are originated. The supporters of the living hypothesis are divided into three camps about the origin of viruses. Some consider viruses as simple or primitive forms of living matter, which represent a transition stage between the living and non living world. They hold them to be living forms with certain characteristics of the non living materials. According to this view, the viruses suggest the way how life might have arisen from lifeless matter. It is generally held that life originated from simple inorganic compounds by slow chemical reactions spread over millions and millions of years. In this way, the pre cellular first inhabitants of the earth, known as the protoviruses, may have originated. The present day viruses are survivors of these inhabitants of the earth. The supporters of the second hypothesis look the other way. They consider viruses as degenerate microorganisms degraded from the primitive free living microorganisms. The supporters of this regressive theory hold that the viruses have evolved from intracellular bacterial and decatacial forms by losing most of the functions and structures characteristic of free living organisms. Matthew in 1970 derives viruses from mycoplasma like organisms, which are the simplest of the cellular microorganisms, by loss of plasma membrane and change of genetic material from DNA to RNA. The members of the third camp have put forth the cell component theory. They derive viruses from normal cell constituents such as mitochondrium or chloroplast. They hold that virus is nothing but a part of the cell, the nucleic acids or genetic elements, which have developed the ability to leave the cell and be transferred to other cells. Such material is independent enough to pass from cell to cell, impose its pattern on the infected host cells. Now, what is the chemical composition of viruses? Chemically, viruses are nucleoproteins, which are made up of two components, proteins and nucleic acid. The nucleic acid forms the core of the virus particle or virion. It is covered by a tightly fitting protein coat shell or sheath. Each virion consists of one nucleic acid molecule, but the protein coat or shell is formed by many similar protein molecules. The nucleic acid is the infective agent. The protein coat is protective in function. It is inert and non-genetic. The proportion of nucleic acid varies from about 1 to 40%. The nucleic acid in virus particle is of a particular type. It is either ribonucleic acid or deoxyribonucleic acid, that is DNA, but not both. Plant viruses generally contain RNA. The only exceptions are like cauliflower mosaic virus and Dahlia mosaic virus, which contain double-stranded DNA. The RNA in plant viruses is usually single-stranded. Double-stranded RNA is, however, known to occur in two, namely wound tumor virus and rice dwarf virus. The DNA almost always occur in a double strand. The phages contain DNA. About half of the animal viruses contain DNA and half RNA. Lipids and carbohydrates, so common in cellular organisms, are usually absent in the viruses. The large cowpox virus, however, contain lipid, carbohydrates, copper, and one or two vitamin-like substances. Each such large and complex viruses exhibit no independent metabolic activity outside the host. On entering the host cell, the virus particle sheds its protein coat. The nucleic acid is released. It passes into the healthy cell and brings about multiplication of the virus. The viruses thus are the simplest forms of life known at present. They are below the level of cellular organization and do not appear to have anything resembling cytoplasm, nucleus, or chromosomes. The only thing they have in common with other living forms is the presence of nucleic acid, that is RNA or DNA or even both. Thus, they have definite and stable hereditary mechanisms The only physiological activity of viruses is self duplication. They exhibit no other physiological function and no metabolism. They are strict parasites, alive at least while in the living cells of the host. They do not possess energy yielding or synthetic enzyme systems, which are essential for an independent existence. Owing to the absence of enzyme systems, they cannot themselves convert energy. Energy is essential for duplication. Entering the host, the virus can make use of the enzyme systems present in the cells of the host and shunt their energy to themselves. It is used for rapid multiplication at the expense of the raw materials of the host cell. Now, what are the properties of viruses? The viruses possess certain physical and chemical properties. On the basis of these and other characters, an attempt has been made to classify them into families, genera, and species. The most important properties of viruses are: number one, they are transmissible from unhealthy to healthy plants. Some can be transmitted by juice inoculations, others lose their activity in plant juices. Number two, they are so small that they can pass through the minutest pores of the filter paper, the pores that can hold back the smallest bacteria. That means they are more smaller than the bacteria. Now it is possible to construct filters fine enough to hold the smallest virus particles. Number three, all viruses are parasitic but differ from the parasitic bacteria in that they can grow and multiply only within the living host cells. No saprophytic viruses are known. All the viruses are obligate parasites. Next, number four, they vary greatly in their reactions towards a number of environmental conditions. Some viruses are easily killed by drying, heat, or poisons. Others are highly resistant. A few remain active for years. In dry state viruses, as a rule, can resist the action of some common germicides such as alcohol, formaldehyde, carbolic acid, like that. Number five, some viruses are effective even if inoculated in infinitesimal doses. They are thus highly infectious. Number six, they are unaffected by exposure to direct sunlight and many can withstand heat, cold, or drought. They can be precipitated from suspensions and redissolved in water. Viruses have host specificity. It means that each virus can infect only a single species and requires definite cells within the host organisms for reproduction. Next point, very important, it is antibiotics have no effect on viruses. Most of the antibiotics usually block a specific reaction in bacterial metabolism. The viruses have no metabolism of their own. Since they use the metabolism of the host cell for their reproduction, the antibiotics have no effect on them.